Today's a rest day at the cabin. I put in a hard day on the trail yesterday. Well, it wasn't as hard as it could have been because a year ago with my YouTube profits, I picked up this little John Sered 2236T. The T stands for top handle saw, and it really works great for out clearing trails. Only weighs 10 pounds loaded up, so even though I hauled that thing around for 9 miles yesterday, the weight wasn't near as bad as it could have been. Well, that was a hard enough day that I've declared today a rest day here at the cabin. Before I had my breakfast, there was some spruce grouse out, and it was actually a sunny day, and I was hoping to catch them in the sunlight. And another addition I made with some of my YouTube profits is I bought a new camera. I got a Panasonic Lumix ZS100. Got the full 1080 video, and I'm really hoping that the shots come out nicer. So I got those shots of the spruce grouse to try to compare with some of the shots I've gotten in the past with the other camera. Something else new is my green plaid shirt. See? No holes in the elbows. Well, a friend was getting rid of it, and I picked it up and brought it up here, so I'm probably good for another 5 or 10 years till I wear this one out. I may have declared a rest day, but my little friends, they don't forget about us. Nice shot. One of these is the young one of this year. Gets a little jittery. They got their full plumage now, so I can't tell the difference. In the springtime, the young ones are gray, and I know it. But here I can just go by the one that's a little more timid about coming in. I think it's over here in the ground right now. Here you go. Food. Oh, I found a piece I dropped over there. They got a sharp eye. You drop anything out here, and they know it. Time for a refill. When I cut that tree down last week, the big aspen caught the top of this balsam and snapped it off. And I was going to cut this off, but then I realized, no, this is going to be a perfect perch for a natural shot of some of the birds. Spruce grouse are on that grid all the time, but I have hopes that when they get doing their flutter flights, that dominant male is going to be flutter flighting up, and he's going to sit up here and make a great photo op. I've been here for a week. I got 2 more yet to go. I figured I better take a little bit of an inventory on my food supply to make sure I'm okay. But I'm sure I am, but I'd hate to run short by eating too much early on. Two burgers, some chicken pot pies. Oh, there's a whole bag of venison backstraps here yet. Oh, and we got, okay, some frozen brats. And I'd forgotten about these, but my wife made these little cherry pies up for me. I think I'll take one out and get it out of the inventory right now. But I got a roasting chicken in there too, so. Even if guests stop by, we're going to eat well. Oh, that sun feels good. It's 10 degrees Celsius, 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Nice blue sky, sun shining bright. Should be having my solar panels at the maximum output today. Although even on cloudy days, I don't have any trouble having enough power stored up. They're after my cherry pie now. Good stuff, don't waste it. What more? Want the crumbs? Here they are. If I'm not mistaken, I think you're pecking me. You didn't like just the crumbs, you wanted bigger pieces. I'm getting enough rain, I can even spare the water to do some laundry. "30 years ago, there were very few trails around this cabin area. And I was out walking one March and there was enough snow on the ground yet. And I saw a deer trail that headed west and it connected up with another one of the existing small trails. So the next morning I went up there and I got on that deer trail with my chainsaw and I had my head down and just clearing the, the little dead trees and the branches off, and kept my head down and kept going, and I didn't know it, but I missed a fork in the trail, ended up turning south and got down into this country before I realized what was going on. But it ended up being kind of a unique little trail anyway, and I've kept it up down through again, I like these dark little wet, quiet cedar trails. Down in these little low areas, and then you pop up on a little island like this, a little higher ground, a whole different habitat. I did pretty good. I rested there at the cabin until 1 o'clock. But I can't sit all day on a rest day, so we're just out for a walk. We're only a few hundred yards away from the cabin, but a little bit different habitat. See what we can find. Now we're going to cross one of the original trails that was here at the cabin when I first arrived back here. And I asked the previous owner if they had cut it, and he just referred to it as, oh, he says, you mean the cat run? No, he said, he came here in 1952, and he says it was here when he got here. Apparently it was tromped down enough and used enough that the vegetation has never really grown back. As usual, on a day off, I got carried away. Started out there, we're just going to do a little 300-meter walk. Well, I got heading down that way and We can go ahead and see what we get into here. I'm on my way back, but I'll walk you through it from the start. We get to go down to make a visit to Marty Marsh on the way and get down to the Forsman cabin. Ended up being about a 2.5 mile circle. Heading south from the old cat run, there was never a trail through the cedar bog country down there. And it was just kind of a mystery. It was so wet and such a tangle that there'd never been a trail or a logging road put through there. No logging road for me to recover anyway. I kept looking around and following deer trails, and over the years I finally ended up having a kind of a route marked out on my GPS, and then with a little bit of trimming I was able to make a walking trail out of it. The first years of its existence, it was known to snap cross-country skis. There were such wicked areas in it. Most people that walked it once didn't want to do it again. And I always just termed it Hell Trail. But then we found some orchids down here, and it made a lot better name if I named it after that orchid. It was a ram's head orchid, and they're fairly rare. You'll just find maybe one in a spot or two. One that was growing right down here where I put my footsteps, and I was talking to a man who was here visiting, checking out the orchids. He was an expert on it, and he said that those ram's heads actually prefer a disturbed soil, so that may have been the reason that it started to grow right there or sustain itself. And I check out every once in a while, and there'll still be one growing right there. Nothing really grows straight down in this Ram's Head Trail. It's so wet that there's really no soil. Everything's growing just in the roots, and kind of everything holds its buddy up. You can see why there was never a trail put through any of this, because it was just very hard to try to walk through. But over the years I kept whittling away and just kind of cutting here and cutting there, and I ended up a passable trail. You don't want to walk it when it's very wet, because there's a lot of logs you slip and slide on, but it puts me down in a very unique piece of country. When these trees finally get, the snow falls in the upper branches and puts weight, and when they're sideways like that, and with no real root system to hold them tight, they ended up getting lower and lower. And when I can no longer limbo underneath them, I cut them up into sections, and I lay them out in, I fill the deepest water holes with them in crossways and make kind of a corduroy road. But it does make the passage through here possible. Yeah, you can see why I had that original name for this trail. This tree was tipped over in the wind and exposed this big root ball like this, and this one is a little probably too wet a country and hasn't quite got the dome effect, but I have come across sign that the bears get back in there and they'll den up. A little bit of a cave under some of them. Here's one of those little limbo spots I was talking about. Things keep getting tighter and tighter, but I think we can still make it through. Put a few feet of snow on the ground, and I think that tree's going to have to go down. A lot of really neat plants down here. This is one of the pitcher plants. Actually a carnivorous plant that, because these soils are so poor down here, that for it to live, insects crawl down inside it, get caught, and are then digested and used for nutrients. We've gone through about a half a mile of the cedar bog. Now we come up onto, well, let's just call this a Cedar Island. A little higher ground. See a birch tree growing ahead. The trees are actually growing straight up in the air. There's enough soil here that they can grab hold and not be blown over. What I like about this is comes up to my one little special spots. You may have seen this before when I've been down here, but we are approaching what I call Marty Marsh. It's just this little pin dot of a marsh. There's several of them down here, but they just kind of a little deeper pocket. I don't know, maybe a peat fire from years ago burned deep and created this extra deep basin here that nothing can grow in. The spot always amazes me. Now I'm just wishing I had brought down a thermos of tea. Not very big at all, but nice spot to sit in the sun. This is an excellent example of what I talked about in those root balls tipping over, providing a nice cave for a bear to den up in. I came across one day while I was deer hunting, and I could see where I thought it was a beaver had dragged all sorts of stuff across the ground, but no, it was the bear had gone out and scratched any grass or anything it could for bedding. And when I looked inside, there was a big pile of bedding with, it was all depressed in the middle, so apparently he'd already laid down there a couple times. And I didn't see him, and I didn't wait around too long to see if he came back either. One nice thing is that once I cut these trails down here in these areas like this where the deer really congregate in the wintertime, and after I clear them, they appreciate having a obstruction-free path. That as they walk along, they munch on all the little green things that come up, and the trail stays like this with no maintenance unless a big tree were to happen to blow over. When I first laid this trail out down here, it was just meant for a wintertime ski trail. So I took advantage of all these little opening marshes, and I just cut holes through some of the down trees, and it's just wide enough for me to ski through. Since that day, I got a dry route over to the east that allows a lot better walking, but the conditions are fairly dry today. I wanted to take advantage to get down here to one of the old homesteaders' cabins in the area. Sorry about that, I led you on again. I should have said cabin site, not settler's cabin. But this old site was homesteaded by a man in the name of Forsman. I've never done any research into his name, or I've never come across that name up in this locality ever. But he was down here early, over 100 years ago. And in today's terms, he was really in the middle of nowhere, because this is completely undeveloped now in these areas now. It's so wet, there's just a few islands in here, but he chose to homestead in here. Sit here now, it's hard to believe that back in one day this was a cozy cabin with Forsman sitting in here, coffee pot on, and I say cozy because I think it must have been a pretty good sized stove. There's two of these doors, so I don't know if it's stacked up that high or what, but that's a pretty good sized stove for a small cabin, even at 40 below zero. Sometimes I think that these old homesteaders didn't cut some of their timber, just it was like money in the bank to them. They could always use it on a rainy day. And for some reason, this big stand of white cedar down here, which is in this country as I wander, I've never come across another stand with such large and straight white cedars. And there's another little special spot that I like coming down to. Very easy to see this old road that Forsman used to access his cabin. He didn't come across that country we walked. He came in from the south. Still a lot of wet country between here and the main gravel road, but most of my old maps show that this is the way the early guys would have come in. I think by the age and size of these trees that Forsman would have been driving right underneath them on his way in and out of here. Whether he had a vehicle or a team, I don't know. There's no sign back there to let me know if he had a vehicle. Sometimes you'll dig up an old license plate if they did have a vehicle. The big white cedar was getting lower and lower, and I put that prop under it, doing my best to let it keep living another 100 years. These trees amaze me in their ability to keep on living. We're looking at the upper part of that tree that I had propped up. You can see that it's been leaning so long that the tree itself is turned and it's growing back up again. This old white cedar sure found a way to stand up straight. Some of these poor soils. Got about four to five different legs out there at a nice angle. I don't think it would blow over in any kind of weather. This white cedar didn't fare quite as well, but I would surmise that maybe what happened was a big tree fell across it a long time ago, bent it down. That tree has finally rotted and fallen away, and this one goes on to live another day. Just a little bit imperfected. That concludes our little walk. We've made the Marty Marsh circle. Now we're back at the Marty Marsh bench, and just a one-way road going back up to the cabin. Been pretty quiet down here. I did finally see a winter wren, but it was uncooperative of me trying to get it on camera.